Hello and welcome to Quest, the adventure game podcast. I'm Ben,
And I am Jess.
and this week we're doing a Quest side quest.
Quest side quest,
A QQSQ.
as they call it.
You know, the year is ending, the day is done. How's that song go? Day is done, gone the sun.
Yeah. Are you thinking of It's Closing Time? Is that the song you're thinking of?
Yeah, I was thinking of Closing Time,
Okay.
which is what they play on a bugle, the delicious snack. Now, all right, Jess, I've got a question. I got a question for you, Jess.
Yes.
I forget exactly the context. I think I was with my family. I think this took place during Thanksgiving. And we had a bag of bugles, the snack treat, which some enjoy. And we were all saying like, oh, bugles. Oh wait, no, it wasn't bugles. It was olives. That was it. And it was Thanksgiving, and there was a big thing of black olives on the table, and it was, why do we have those out? Because they're just like canned olives. They're not good olives. And my sister was like, oh, it's because it's fun to put those on your fingers.
I was hoping that was where this was going, because I was thinking those are both snacks made for putting on your fingers, and I hope that this is the context they've been connected. Yeah,
that's how that connected in my mind. But then the thing is that as adults, we were all like, oh, we can't really put these on our fingers. I tried and I mostly succeeded, but it was fairly tenuous. Have you? So I guess my question is, have you either recently put an olive or a bugle on your fingers?
a bugle, yes. An olive, no. I feel like olives are messier to do it with.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm only eating fine olives. I'm not doing canned. I might go into the salad bar at a nice grocery store and scooping up some very fancy olives.
You want to get a delicious smoked Kalamata olive and stick that on your finger, and it will be like an incredible perfume.
Yeah, and all of mine are stuffed with the finest cheeses, so there's really no room for a finger in there. I mean, these are very fancy olives.
You said olive mine. Is that intentionally a pun or just a spoonerism?
I would say closer to a spoonerism. I wish that was an intentional pun, but it was not. Ben, have I ever told you about my friend in college whose mom worked for the clothing company Bugle Boy? Now, Bugle Boy is not really a going concern anymore.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of follow-up questions. But okay. I think my main one is, what is Bugle Boy? I am unfamiliar with that brand.
It was a 1990s brand you might find in like low-range clothing stores, like say a Goodies Clothing or something like that. It was like outlet mall fare sort of things. A good place to get khakis or button-ups, kind of like a low-rent Tommy Hilfiger vibe and things like that. The important takeaway from this is this was a popular brand here in the United States back in the 90s. My friend's mom.
I'm seeing some T-shirts that are. I mean, I could see like a 20-year-old today wear these Bugle Boy T-shirts because they're very like kind of what's the word? Like, just that 90s, it's like the purple and like the neon colors. And all this, I'm like, this is what this is looped around to looking very cool again. Like,
so you're saying, buy Bugle Boy.
I could see a 21-year-old with like a mullet wearing this, and everyone being like, "Wow, you look so fucking cool." I say as a out of touch 38-year-old, but this looks like the shit the kids are wearing.
Kids can't. It's just like adventure games. Kids can't get enough. But the important part of the story. I don't think you need to know about the brand to appreciate this.
Yeah,
my friend whose mom worked at Bugle Boy swore that the actual name of the brand was Boogle Boy. That it was being widely mispronounced by the public at large, and despite it being spelled like the horn, like the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. It was in fact Boogle Boy, and
Now,
really like believed this in his heart of hearts. This was
now,
not a bit.
now, Jess,
Boogle Boy.
how many stories do you have about people who intensely believe in mispronouncing things? Because it feels to me like you have two that I could think of. This one and your mother-in-law saying cinnamon coast tunch.
No, Cinnamon Croast Touch. Cinnamon
And
Croast Touch.
yeah. And
And
like
Chickafil.
and Chickafil. And so like do you have I mean that's an alarming number, like having two stories like that. Do you have a third?
To have a third, I'd have to think about it. You know, I feel like those are my favorites, like Boogle Boy. I think, like, can you imagine saying like Boogle Boy? Even sounds hard to say. Like, that's not an easy thing to make your mouth do.
No.
But I mean, that's how it is sometimes. I mean, that's just been how it is sometimes.
Yeah, that's how it is. All right, so today
On this quest side quest.
on this quest side quest, we're doing game of some year. Now I was chatting with a friend of mine, my friend Ryan, who is a listener. He's the host of the Yum Yum podcast, and he said to me, said, you know, I like now I'm gonna have to scroll back. But essentially, like I'm not going to do that. You know what? I'm not gonna look back on our chat. But essentially, he was interested in like being like, what, like you know, I. He said he'd be interested in us kind of talking about this topic. And then I was like, that would be fun. And then also, it's like getting towards the end of the year, and it'd be fun to do kind of just like a fun mess around podcast and see how people feel about that.
Yeah,
And if you enjoy it, then great. And if you
this is the
don't,
format from now on.
yeah.
If you enjoy it, I mean, first of all, the big takeaways here are all it takes is one listener to give us a
That's right.
request for a show, and we
Yep.
will do it the next chance we're in front of microphones. It's like just whatever you ask for.
Should we call this quest side quest or request quest?
Oh, I like request quest. Yeah,
Yeah.
this.
If you have a request quest, send us an email at questquestpodcast@gmail.com. Uh, request quest. Or I guess if you're Ryan and we're already having a lengthy chat that goes back years, you could also just ask me a
Yeah,
question.
you can also, yeah, or yeah, if you see us out in public, you know,
Yeah.
if you're at one of our meet and greets or something
Yeah.
like that, and you just want to come up to us.
Anyway, so this is game of some year because here's the thing. I speaking for myself, you know, I purchase a fair amount of games. I'm you know,
Oh, I purchased tons of games.
I purchase a lot of games, but you know, in all honesty, I don't buy generally new games. And certainly I don't put a ton of time in everything new that's out there. And so like the idea of doing like a game of the year, it would be limited to like honestly like 5 or 6 games.
Now, if UFO 50 is on your list, you could just fill the whole list with UFO 50 games.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder if it's on my list. You'll find out.
Well, now this is important too. So, as part of this request quest or quest side quest, we'll edit this to reflect which one of those we've chosen. It is important to note, you know, our goal is to go back and talk about some of the games that we've played over the past year, new or old, just games that we enjoyed and wanted to talk a little bit about that we've
yeah.
played in the last 12 months. I, in the spirit of transparency and cooperation, shared my list with Ben, and
Mhm.
Ben adamantly refused to reveal any of his choices.
Yeah.
So
And
this
well,
isn't
and I
this is an asymmetric podcast in that
yeah,
regard.
all of my choices are aggressive towards Jess too. They're all angry.
They're
Uh
all just to get under my skin. He
yeah.
knows the games are going to just make me so mad.
Uh and also so we each have 5 and we're going to trade back and forth. And Jess, I you know, I didn't commit yours to I remember one of the ones that you
Okay, good.
put down, but I don't remember the other four. So how about you go first?
Okay, I go first. We each want to do five of these. Five games that we played this
Yep.
year that left an impression.
Yeah.
And the first one I want to talk about is It Takes Two to Tangle, a
Okay.
King's Quest fan game by the amazingly talented Acral 15. Now, I streamed this one.
hmm
Ben, I believe you were around for some of those streams,
I,
right?
I watched some of this, but what is this game? What is this?
This game is a King's Quest fan game that was in the works for a full decade. I believe it started out as a fanfic that
Uh-huh.
evolved into a full fledged fan game. And it's fantastic. It is a story with two protagonists. It stars Edgar, who originally appeared in King's Quest 4 and eventually becomes Rosella's boyfriend, and Cosima, who is, of course, Alexander's love interest in King's Quest 6 after previously appearing in King's Quest 5. And this game follows them on a journey that sort of weaves together interesting bits of King's Quest lore. It gives us a look into these characters that have largely been on the side and haven't had a lot of chance for character development in the past. It is a fantastic fan game. I think what I love most about it is while it's like deeply steeped in King's Quest lore, it also kind of does its own thing. The
I
puzzle
like
design,
deeply steeped.
deeply
Deep.
steeped.
It's deeply steeped. It's
It's
not
deep
steeped.
steeped.
It's not deep. It's deeply steeped. All right.
Deeply steeped.
Hey, Paul. Anyway.
But no, I mean, while it's definitely plugged into King's Quest lore, the story that's telling, I feel like, is maybe a little bit more mature in the themes it grapples with in terms of love and the kind of adventure it's telling. The puzzles are quite clever and really move away from maybe some of the I don't know, moon logic you see in some of the King's Quest games, or maybe
How long did it take you? What do you say about how long is that game?
I think for me it took, I'm wanting to think 8 or 9 hours to
8 or 9.
finish. I mean,
Oh, it's
yeah,
a
I mean
full length game.
it's
It's
a
a
full
full
length,
length fan game.
yeah, and I mean it is really impressive. I mean, the art is gorgeous. It has an animated style that's reminiscent of King's Quest 7. If for those of you who like that style, it's one that I feel like I can just absolutely recommend to anyone who enjoyed the King's Quest series. I think you could jump into this and really find a work that has a lot of what you love about King's Quest, but also its own personality that makes it kind of special.
And you can find that I'm on the website right now. It's at Acrol, which is spelled AKRIL 15.com/KQ9. So this is
Absolutely.
King's Quest 9 : It Takes Two to Tangle. Like,
Don't
going in.
say that to Activision though. Whatever you, or Microsoft, who owns King's Quest now? Is there any chance
Microsoft.
we own it? We have a portfolio we've been assembling. Do we own
Yeah.
King's Quest?
Well, I of course am a major investor, and so I do own about 12% of Microsoft, and fortunately, the 12% of Microsoft I own is the Sierra and Infocom back
That is
catalog, and
12% of
and
Microsoft's.
yeah, that's 12, and also from the Activision just Pitfall.
I knew exactly what you were about to say. When you said Activision, I knew that you were going to say Pitfall. My
Just
brain ran through how many titles are in the Activision catalog. Who knows? But I knew it was like, he's going to say Pitfall. And
just Pitfall.
I mean, Pitfall's a good game. Oh man, I could go for some scorpion jumping right now.
Those scorpions are so fucking hard to jump over. All
They're
right.
tough I mean, a real scorpion's much easier to jump over. Those things aren't that big.
So, anything else on It Takes Two to Tangle? King's Quest 9.
Go play this. I mean, there's very little chance we'll talk about another fan game through the remainder of this podcast. So if you're going to play one fan game this year, go play It Takes Two to Tangle.
All right. So here's my first one. Number one on my list, and mine's not in any particular order. But Crimson Diamond, which did come out this
Ooh.
year.
Uh-huh.
did come out this year. Crimson Diamond. That's a adventure game, and I also want to note that the games on this list, we said at least 2 adventure games, so we can have more. But we might talk about some other, let's say,
That's what makes this
popular
a
compilations of
yeah, a
games.
quest side quest is, I mean, normally we would never talk about a non-adventure game on quest. It's never happened
No,
yet. Never happened yet.
no.
But this is a quest side quest by request.
Uh, and I'll say also, no one ever emailed. Many episodes ago, I said, please email us if there's a good Frogger other than Frogger, and no one answered. So I feel, but like I don't think that no one listened. I think it's that everyone agrees there is no such thing as another good Frogger.
Nailed it
uh,
in one.
yeah. Anyway, so Crimson Diamond, which you can find on Itch and Steam, and probably, I don't know if it's on GOG, but it's it's around. Take a look. It is a 16 color Laura Boehm up, to steal the joke from Rock Paper Shotgun. Um, and it uses the text parser from that era. And like, so first off, I've always loved that short run of it, like 16 color adventure games at a quote unquote higher resolution, at the
Yes.
320. Like, so if you're unfamiliar, that would be a game like Quest for Glory 2 or Lorabo 1, or just look up one of those. I think that particular higher resolution 16 color look, there's something very distinct about it. And this isn't limited to Sierra games, because I think it looks really good on Loom and the first Monkey Island, like, and Indiana
Indiana
Jones and the
Jones.
Last Crusade, like, and then also like non Sierra or LucasArts or Lucasfilm games. Like, I just think that high resolution 16 color, there were a lot of artists that really found a way to make it look really, really cool.
Mm.
And so it's like, uh
Using that 17th color.
yeah, using they cheated. They used 17, sometimes 18 colors. But anyway,
We
so
aren't supposed to talk about that.
yeah.
That's the sort of thing that will get us shut down if we start revealing the secrets of the extended EGA palette.
So Crimson Diamond is a mystery game where you're in a remote mansion in the like in the north of Canada. A diamond was found deep in, like, inside a fish, and a bunch of people want to come and like investigate this, and there's a murder, and there's all sorts of shifty people afoot, and no one in this house is quite who they seem, or perhaps they are, perhaps they're telling you the truth the entire time and just seem very suspicious. And I th- I think it is just exceptional. I think that it looks, I think that it looks like wonderful. As I said, I really love that particular aesthetic. I'm not a fan. I don't have any nostalgia for a text parser. I know some people do. I don't. I don't
I
have
do.
any nostalgia for it, but I think that the, like, it has a very flexible parser, and like, you could tell like, it was very, like, tested. Like, it has a very, like, a parser that feels like it has a ton of variation on, like, what words someone will use and stuff like that. And then, yeah, it has a really interesting story. All of the characters have their own unique voice, and which is tough to do. And like the investigation stuff is all really cool. And what's wonderful about it, and I think I talked about this, I think last week, talking about uh uh locomotive, um is is that like the like the mystery stuff, there's stuff that you can miss, and it kind of compels me, like there's a whole chunk of an investigation that I just totally missed.
Yeah, I mean that
And
is my
but I
Laura
didn't
Bow
feel cheated out of
experience.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't feel like I was cheated out of the game. It actually like just made me think like, all right, well, I gotta go back and play this and do a better job investigating like this part. Yeah, it's wonderful. I think it is definitely like there are so many great indie adventure games coming out, and uh this really catches attention by being like such a very specific style of throwback, and it's also just really extremely well done. And so yeah, that's one of my games of the year.
that's one that I haven't played yet. I'm really looking forward to it. I tried not to watch too much of your stream because I didn't
Yeah.
want to spoil it for myself. But I did watch a good bit of Julia Minamata, the creator
Yes, yes.
of Crimson Diamond. I watched a good bit of her development streams along the way, so it's been fun watching her, pixel by pixel assemble some of these scenes and watch this game come together, over the past year plus, and then see it, actually finally hit release and be so well received. I mean, I think this one has gotten, it's safe to say, universal praise, right? I mean,
It's gotten a ton of like it's for such an odd duck of a game,
mm-hmm.
like a tribute to a type of thing I didn't think anyone outside of big nerds were really into. Like it's
Yes.
gotten a ton of attention, like a ton of very positive attention. So it's just very very nice to hear and see that there's an audience for it. So yeah, Jess, number
I'm,
2.
I'm going to play this one soon. Now, number two on my list, I am going to, again, this is game of some year, not game of the year. I'm going to dip out of 2024 and go all the way back to 2014 and talk about a game that I played earlier this year that I really enjoyed. One that I think really got slept on when it came out in 2014. I want to talk about Telltale Games. Game of Thrones season when they did their adaptation of Game of Thrones.
I don't think this was slept on. I think that it was stepped on. Which
Stepped
is
on.
I remember it had a negative reputation
Yes, I mean that's right.
if
I mean,
anyone played it.
and you see, I think this is part of a bigger problem, and maybe someday we'll get a chance to explore this in more detail in some sort of broader Telltale episode. But I think by the time you get to these later Telltale releases, like as that run is kind of working its way toward the end, um, reviewers really didn't give a lot of these later games a fair shake. They were tired of the formula. They felt like Telltale was just redoing Walking Dead over and over again. Some of these later games, I think, got dismissed by critics as more of the same. And while that's
I
true at
think
some
some
level,
I think some players felt that way too. I seem
oh,
to
absolutely,
recall.
yeah,
I seem to recall like
yes, absolutely.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah.
This isn't like a game journos
I
screed,
mean, I
right?
hate all game journalists, of course. Please,
Obviously,
yeah.
yeah, no, this isn't that. But I do think that, I mean, they went back to the well a few too many times with varying degrees of success. I think the Game of Thrones game actually has a little bit of juice. It's worth checking out. It's an interesting story in that it goes like parallel. It goes we're a
It
media
is an
tie-in.
inkwell.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's running parallel to the TV series. You're part of House Forrester, a heretofore undiscussed minor house in Westeros, and you're running alongside some of the big characters and big storylines that are happening on the TV show. So you're going to get Jon Snow popping up. You're going to get your Daenerys. You're going to get your Tyrion. You're going to get several other big name actors coming in with varying degrees of effort to perform their characters. Jon Snow seems like he maybe took a few Benadryls before he headed up to the Wall, but it's a good game. I mean, if you love Game of Thrones, which I did, it is a fun attempt to tell a story within a world that has been very deeply explored already without breaking canon in the process. And I think of those later Telltale releases, it's one that I would say definitely worth checking out. I would put the 2 seasons of Batman up there too. Those are
Oh, those
definitely
are
ones that have
good.
been overlooked.
And
Those are great.
this is actually reminding me, and also I'm going to note I took I took a look. This is no longer for sale.
Of course not. No, you would have to
um,
steal this somehow, which I
uh,
don't endorse.
but uh, did we play this year or did we play late last year? The Expanse Telltale
Oh, I think that
that came
was
out
this year.
2023. That
I
came
th-
out. So we played it. We played that one that came out. If
okay.
because I remember, I think we were playing as it released, if I
Hmm.
recall correctly,
And
and
it was a
those were
prequel.
excellent.
Those were. They
Those
were.
were great.
Yeah, and I think that's one that didn't get a ton of attention. I
No,
think that it was a license maybe that a year or two earlier would have been better. But yeah, the Expanse, if you're familiar with the novels or the television series, there, it was a fantastic Telltale game. It was,
I think
uh,
those were super underrated.
yeah, it was small in a good way. It's not telling a how do you save the universe sort of story necessarily. It's telling a very, sort of more personal adventure that gives you a chance to really get to know an interesting cast of characters. And I would say the Game of Thrones game is in many ways quite similar. You get the big cameos from the big names, but most of it is about learning the ins and outs of this minor house that's, sort of trying to carve out its own way in this broader, giant, world transforming war that's going on around them. This, as I like to call it, Game of Thrones.
How interesting. I'm trying to let's see. Okay, so the Game of Thrones Telltale game. I'm trying to figure this out now. Game of Thrones. All right, so it came out in 2014. And I'm also trying to map on. No, I was trying to see if like this also like people might have also been a little tired with it because it was also like around when people started to turn on the show. But no, the that was season 4, and people were definitely all
Oh
on
yeah,
board. Like,
they're still on the hook. Yeah,
yeah,
up to
the
this point, yeah, things hadn't gone south for them yet.
yeah
They would.
the Game of Thrones turn comes like in those like last the post book seasons,
Yeah,
right?
Ben, were you a Game of Thrones guy?
No. I read the books up like up to I didn't read the the one that came out like I don't know 6 or 7 years ago. I like before the series started, I like as a nerd read the books up to whatever the red one was. Not the red wedding, but like just the one I remember a red cover. So I think that's four of them. There are 5 books, right?
Ish, 4 to 5, between 4 and 5.
Oh yeah, I haven't read the 5th book. Anyway, I read those and uh I really enjoyed them, and then I watched the first season and was like, I read this. Then I didn't watch it. And then
Yeah,
I was done. Like I was just kind of like, I read these. I don't need this. And it was just one of those things. Sometimes, like, and
some crimes.
it wasn't even like a hot hostility towards it. Like I saw the appeal. It was though it is funny. It was shocking to me how popular it was.
Yes, it felt like some real nerd shit that I'm surprised normies got into.
I also think that they didn't even like I wonder like if they knew because I remember when the first season, like I remember seeing ads for the first season and being like, wow, they're adapting like this like nerd book series I read, like like oh Sean Bean, that's like he's pretty good, like it's like, but I mean, whatever, like this is just for dorks, and then like no, jokes on me, like every like apparently there was something for everybody, and that was nudity,
Yeah,
and
that's
also
all it took.
shocking twists, which is I
Yeah,
think what really
yeah.
got people.
I would never have
um
watched the show if it weren't for the nudity.
yes,
I'd heard about it. I was like, that's not for me. And someone said there's gratuitous nudity. And I said, sign me up.
I would watch it if it had gratuitous tudity, which is
Two
to
did.
say tudity, which is to say like people would like skateboard around and
Oh,
like,
like Ratatouille?
well, no, I mean, I don't, I already have seen that movie and it was excellent. Just and here's the thing: Ratatouille, Remy the rat did not have very much tude. He was pretty much a straight shooter, I would say.
Yeah, he's
Um,
someone you could trust. He's a rat you could
yeah,
trust.
he was one of those rats you could trust.
He's a stable rat.
So you know what, Jess, I'll go up now with mine. I'll meet your telltale with my telltale, which is to say, Tales of Monkey Island. I'll put that up there as one of my favorite games I've played this year.
Oh,
And I, this is really interesting to me. I really enjoyed my time with Tales of Monkey Island because it lived forever in my head as that Telltale Monkey Island game I didn't like very much.
yes.
Like it was, and I don't think this is a entirely unique experience. I played the first two episodes. I didn't even finish the second episode, and I was like, oh well, and that was that. And I was just kind of disappointed, and like there there are some real bummer things that kind of hamstring that, like entirely related to that they had to fit it onto WiiWare, which
WeWare.
WiiWare,
WeWare.
like they had to do all sorts of like you could see it reuses assets constantly, so and also just to provide some background, so this is a telltale episodic adventure game that like set in the world of the Monkey Island games, came out notably before Return to Monkey Island. um and it is also, it's not in the Walking Dead style, it is like Sam and Max. It's like more of a straightforward point and click adventure, but like episodic. And uh the a little bit of the challenge of it is that you could tell that they really wanted to make a make it really Monkey Islandy, which is to say, like have a big kind of open world aspect to each episode, but also like fit that within like the 3 megabytes that a WiiWare game could be or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard to do full voice in 3 megabytes, but that was what the WeWare asked for, and they found a way to do it.
uh, but yeah, so it's like those first two episodes, first off, they weren't as weak as I remembered them. They're not the best hours of Telltale, but they're fine. But then as it goes, it gets really clever, and there's some very fun and interesting puzzles. And this one, and you could still buy this. This is still available for sale, thankfully.
It
Um
feels ripe for a remaster.
it
Like,
Yes,
just
please.
it's time. It's ready.
Skunkape Games, if you're able to get the Monkey Island, it's like Sam and Max. I think Steve Purcell might be a little easier to work with than the Disney Corporation, but what do I know?
That's what I've heard.
And I mean, and he works there. He works for Pixar. But yeah, it would be great if they remastered it, especially because the latter episodes all have horrible glitches that make it very like like it will crash. Then you just have to kind of search online. It's like crash at this point, Tales of Monkey
Yeah.
Island. But
You had to find a forum entry from like
yep,
2012
yep,
that
yep.
explains it. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, and also I like. I don't know. There's some stuff in it that I think is a little better than Return to Monkey Island. I think also that Dominic Armato, the voice of Guybrush Threepwood, puts in just a tremendous performance. I think he is just dynamite in it, and
Yeah. And he's always dynamite.
yeah, and
That's the
he's
thing.
always good. It's
But
just what a nice little treat to have like to that there was like this franchise. It's when people say it's like there's an adventure game out and they'll be like just like Secret of Monkey Island, a game that came out a long time ago, uh and like obviously I've played Secret and Revenge and Curse dozens of times, and Return I enjoyed. I think I'm due a replay of that to see how I feel about it.
I'm low key angry about Return still, so I
You
definitely
you
need to
you
replay it.
yeah.
I think I need to give that one a second chance now that I know where it went and where it's heading and etc. I came out of that just fighting mad. Not for any of the reasons everyone else was, but for my own
It's
personal
very
reasons.
Ron Gilberty. He just does that
He
shit.
Ron Gilberted me.
Yeah, you got Gilberted. If you didn't expect him to be himself, let
Yeah.
me tell you the story of the scorpion, the frog. They kissed.
You got to jump over that scorpion, and it's harder than it
No, they
looks.
just made out for hours, and
Do you
then
think
they had
Frogger could jump
fuck up
over?
little babies.
Do you think Frogger could jump over the scorpion from
No.
Pitfall?
Yeah. Well, if Frogger can't even jump over. Are there scorpions in Frogger? Oh,
Probably
it's a
not.
snake. It's a snake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like
Frogger can't jump over
yeah.
a snake.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Is
a really good
Frogger
point.
the name of the frog?
Oh, now this is, or am I the Frogger because I'm controlling the frog?
And I'm not going to look this up.
No,
Is
I think Frogger
Frogger
is the
the
name of the frog.
frog's name?
Is there a Frogger Jr. at some point? Did that happen, or did I just imagine the existence of Frogger Jr.?
I don't think there's a Frogger Jr.
Can we develop a game called Frogger Jr.?
Could we? Yes. Copyright us.
Trademark. I'm going to mail a letter to you with
Yeah,
Frogger Jr.
I'm also
on it.
mailing. I'm mailing a letter also right now.
Yeah, which will
But
make it official.
it's just to make you feel good
Oh,
because it
I do
always
love
feels nice to
email.
get mail.
I do- no,
QuestPodcast@gmail.com. All right, what's your next game, Jess?
Well, Ben, I'm going to piggyback off of you because
Whoa,
you're
lots of
talking-
piggybacking here.
we're piggybacking. As always, even though we haven't discussed these ahead of time, it's just our natural synergy that makes this work.
It's very dynamic.
It's very everybody keeps saying your podcast is so dynamic.
Yeah.
And piggybacking off of Tales of Monkey Island, I want to mention
Tales of the Borderlands 2.
Tales of the Borderlands 2. Oh my God. At some point, Ben, we have to do a whole episode about Tales of the Borderlands 2 because that is the absolute worst thing imaginable in a lot of ways. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about a wonderful Telltale game. I'm here to talk about the remastered edition of Sam and Max, The Devil's Playhouse, the third season of Telltale's Sam and Max series, rebooted. Remastered by Skunkape Games. Is it Skunkape or do they call themselves Skunkape?
I don't know.
I mean, that's the joke in the game itself. Skunkape is the evil space gorilla, but Sam and Max call him Skunkape.
Well, Jake Rodkin follows you on Blue Sky, which therefore means he's a podcast listener, and
absolutely,
and is
Jake,
not upset
thank you,
about
first of
our
all.
thoughts about The Walking Dead. But
no,
he
understands where we were coming from.
We know that you're listening right now, Jake, and we appreciate it. So if you could send us an email and just write. Don't write the pronunciation. Just write
Skunkape or Skunkape.
It's pronounced that.
It's just like it's spelled.
Yeah.
But no, this. I mean, I loved all the
All
remasters.
the remasters are excellent. They all look. I think those games originally look good, and
They,
now with all the magic of today's computers, they look even
that's right.
better.
Everything's ray traced. You can see every hair on Sam's furry
Mhm.
head. It's beautiful. But no, I mean, these are all already good looking games. You go in, you tweak some of the lighting, you give a few, quality of life updates. This one is particularly good though. It was a great looking game when it came out. The remaster really makes it shine. And also, what I love about this one, I loved all three seasons of these Telltale games. I missed them completely when they came out. I've played all three of these in the last couple of years.
Mhm.
But this third season, The Devil's Playhouse,
It's amazing.
is it's amazing and it's so weird. Like the first two are very much like standard Sam and Max sorts of adventures in a good way. I love Sam and Max.
Mhm.
But this one gets weird and supernatural and time travel and just bizarre at some fundamental levels. And one of the things I think that's most interesting about it is during some of the chapters, they really split up Sam and Max. Like you have an
Mhm.
episode that you largely play as Sam, an episode you largely play as Max. This is fascinating to me
And
because
Max is generally a non like, like generally in the other games and even in Hit the Road, like Max is just kind of there. Like
yeah,
he,
he's a
yeah.
sidekick. I mean, he
Yeah.
is there maybe sometimes as a hint system. He's there a lot of times as comic relief. But when you separate Sam and Max, I didn't realize it until I played this game, but they are such like a duo in every sense that I don't know if I've ever recalled them being not on screen together. It really like I think drives home just what interesting characters they are. I mean, clearly, after you play a game where you've been Sam the entire game, you are desperately missing having Max around because you realize, like, man, this duo is supposed to be a duo. And I think challenging just some of the building blocks the series is built on makes that third chapter really fascinating, along with just like an absolutely bananas storyline. No pun
They're
intended
very funny.
in Cape. But just a fun game, a
Yeah.
wonderful game. You know, we've talked before, I believe, about imagining this alternate timeline where maybe, The Walking Dead isn't the huge sensational hit that it is. And Telltale makes more of these more traditional adventure games. Where it's still inventory driven, it's still puzzle driven. As much as I love those narrative games, I mean, I already talked about Game of Thrones, which is very much one of these Walking Dead style narrative games. I feel like by the time they were on that third season of Sam and Max, man, they're
They
more
were cooking.
traditional adventures. They're just clicking. They're firing
Yeah.
on all firing on all cylinders. That's what they were
Yeah.
firing on.
I'm sure that, like I wouldn't be surprised if like over, they looked at the sales of Walking Dead and looked at the sales of Sam and Max season 3 and went, all right. But it is a shame. Like I kind of wish, and I'm sure people there kind of wish too, because I bet they got tired of it too. Maybe I don't know. But
Well, probably got very
like
literally tired because they're releasing like
yes,
two chapters of some game every month,
right.
all year long.
But like it's like if they alternated, or it's like if like
Yeah,
some of them were in one style, like it just all the eggs went in that basket, and then everyone got tired of that basket, and then and now we can't play Game of Thrones.
that's what happens.
All right.
That's what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket.
So my next game, staying on adventure games, is this is another game I streamed earlier this year. It is Beyond the Edge of Alsgard. Um,
Beyond the edge of Owlsguard.
so this is an indie adventure game, and I think it's just beautiful. I think it looks just has it is in that 256 color like kind of vintage style that a lot of throwback games are in. Um and I like it looks just wonderful, and it has really great animation, and it is kind of a light fantasy game where you're animals. Like I think you're. It's been a minute since I've played it, but like deer and owls, as mentioned, and like various other like it's a talking animals fantasy game. If you ever played Inherit the Earth, the adventure game from the 90s, it is obviously inspired by that. I would say this is actually a much better game than Inherit the Earth. It like you know the production value on indie adventure games has just gotten like just so great. Like
Absolutely, and
it's
yeah, I mean
just has
the
gotten
animation on this one really is gorgeous. I mean, it's a great looking game in general, but
yeah
man, the animation is slick.
like it's just playing it looks really wonderful. It's sometimes you want to play an earnest little fantasy adventure where you're wandering around some fantasy woods solving some fantasy problems. That's exactly what this is. Like, in within the like we've talked a lot about this as it's like so many adventure games like kind of the default is comedy, and this is kind of jokey, as jokey moments, and it like has like comic moments and silly sound effects if I recall correctly, and stuff like that, but ultimately it's more of like kind of like a fantasy game uh
Yeah,
with a chuckle here and there, and uh like it's nice to play something like that without any of the like that kind of detached irony of it. Like it's nice to just kind of play like just a nice little fantasy game for a bit, like a nice little fantasy adventure point and click adventure game that it doesn't like try to like act like it's too cool to be what it is.
no, and if I could give it one criticism, it's that personally, I only jumped in your final stream of it, and it turns out if you only tune in for like the last 45 minutes, it is very hard to understand. I really
Yes.
recommend everyone play this game from the beginning. Don't somehow skip to the end and try to understand it.
Yeah, I
The me
recommend
thing though, that could be
playing. I recommend playing this in the linear style. You start
it's
like
one of those games.
this is one of those games where I would say it's best enjoyed if you start at the beginning, then you work your way to about the middle, and
Okay,
then once you've made
from
it to the
there,
middle, you go straight to the end. And once you've
yeah.
completed the game, then you finished it.
So I was speed running it. I was like, I'm just going to start right at the end, but you can't speed run narrative. That's something I've really learned as a result of Beyond the Edge of Asgard. Yeah, you got to be there from the beginning. This I loved watching you stream this one though. It was a gorgeous game. It's one that again sort of tuned in late to made me really curious to see the rest of it. And no, it is it's definitely charming.
Yeah. All right. What do you have next?
Oh my goodness!
We're
I
up to
think
number
I am.
4, I think,
I'm on
each.
my number
Yeah.
four. Number four. This is one I've talked about briefly on the podcast before, but I'm afraid I have no choice but to.
Jess,
Yeah.
I've got my finger over booing.
Okay.
The boo birds are like
Flocking.
their talons. Yeah, they're circling.
The
It's
boo
it's
birds are
it's
circling.
like it's like you're in a desert and you see vultures.
Oh
There
man.
there are boo birds up in the air. They're circling.
Okay, Ben, get that finger ready.
All right.
World of Warcraft: The War Within.
It could be worse. It could have been Overwatch.
It could have
Go
been.
ahead.
It literally could have been. No, so we dodged a bullet there. But let me say,
a
I've
bullet.
talked about this before. This year on a lark, for a larf, I decided to return to the World of Warcraft for the first time in 18 years, not long after the War Within expansion pack launched. This is as we record this, the latest and greatest World of Warcraft expansion pack. I started out with a level 1 character, a warlock named Mukul Winran, and leveled her all the way up to the max 80, level 80.
How long did it take you to get to level 80?
I think less than a month. I mean, this is
Well,
new
yeah, but like how many
Warcraft.
hours of play?
Oh, how many hours of play? Oh, that's a good question. I think I probably hit level 80 in less than 40 hours.
Okay.
So, I mean, and once upon a time, like leveling up to max would have been like a months long process. You know, you would have really had to like put in the time to grind that stuff out. And that's actually part of what I wanted to talk about is
Mhm.
what I find fascinating about World of Warcraft today. Now, of course, disclaimer, I've had to quit it cold turkey again because the addiction took hold and I had to, unsubscribe, delete off the hard drive, do everything I could to cut myself off from this because it's still a horribly addictive MMO. But what was fascinating to me about as I returned to it was how solo player friendly it is here in the year 2024. I played all the way from level 1 to 80. I don't say this is like a weird flex without making a single friend. I never
Pretty
had to like,
cool.
yeah, I mean that's our dream, right? That's why we play multiplayer games,
Yeah,
is so we
play
don't have to
a
interact with.
subscription for a multiplayer game that you play entirely by yourself.
That's right. That's the way to do it. That's
Yeah.
the way to do it. But no, I think what was interesting about it was like when I left the game way back 18 years ago or whatever,
Right.
once you reached end game, you were locked into a very like serious hardcore grind. If you wanted to advance any further, now you are grouping up with like groups of 40 people and trying to coordinate raid schedules, and you are practicing and people will yell at you if you don't do well in a boss encounter
Mhm.
and all of this sort of stuff. There was no version of once you hit max level of doing anything solo.
I
And
knew Max Level. Nice guy.
max level. Um, but now the solo content is there in a way that like you can run dungeons solo with like AI party members. You can
Mm.
do dungeon delves that take you in these little like mini dungeons with an AI partner. You can even do lots of. I mean, they've had random group finder stuff in the game for ages, but all of that's been smoothed out to a point that I was literally as a player who never joined a guild, never really partnered up with anyone or anything like that. I was able to see all the final content. I was able to run the final raids. I was able to beat the final boss. I completed the storyline of the expansion.
Was this like kind of the joy of it for you? Is that like, like after all these years, like you get to go back and it's like, oh, finally I'm able to like see this boss.
Absolutely. Like I went back to the old world bosses, like the parts of the game that were around 18 years ago that I never got to see. That now with a level 80 character, you can just run through and solo what used to be the hardest boss of the
Right.
game and one shot it. And that
Right.
was fascinating. Like that always, because when I play games, this is why I love adventure games. I'm playing to experience narrative and characters and things like that. Like the mechanics and all that are usually secondary to me. And that was always frustrating. It's like I can play World of Warcraft for hundreds of hours back in the day and
Mhm.
never see the true end game content because I'll never be that person who can devote their life to, to raiding in that way. Now the game is set up in a way that, yeah, even casual players can make it to the end game content. And to me, I think that's fascinating. Again, that was also the problem. It meant that I had this entire World of Warcraft at my fingertips and I had to escape that before it destroyed my life, and I did. So that's good too. But yeah, the War Within, it's good stuff. I mean, I got back in it, and I could just feel it wrapping its tendrils around my brain, and got out while I could.
Uh well, wonderful. Here's my next one. This is a VR game that
Oh
I
wow!
played a fair amount of this summer. And it's you know like I when I wrote this down, I was like, man, this game's good. Maybe I should start playing it again. It's this game called Underdogs. Um,
Oh, I haven't even heard of this one, Ben.
Underdogs is a VR mech fighter that's like kind of a roguelike. And the gameplay is primarily just these excuse me, just these arenaed fights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the like number one, it has just it just has great style, which is always a problem with a lot of VR games. Is that they don't have very good like they just don't look that good. Like and
Mm-hmm.
this has a very um like there's like a limited amount of like complexity you can do to the graphics because they should work at base on a Quest 2, which like is essentially like kind of like a cell phone innards.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this has style to like the 3D graphics. It also feels really good. Like as I said, so you're in like it's a mech fighter, you're in these arenas. You move around not by like pushing forward on like a stick, but instead you swing your actual arms in front of you and pull yourself forward like
Oh,
you're an ape
interesting.
walking across a room. So like and I believe that this
Oh.
is actually the same movement. I haven't played it as the popular VR game Gorilla Tag. I think also has that. I think ape movement is a or gorilla movement in that case is maybe it helps people with motion sickness. I don't know.
Oh.
Anyway, but it is very satisfying. You can like it has, as I said, like kind of a roguelike, or maybe I didn't say it. It has a roguelike component to it. And so you build up like your mech weapons and you can customize it and stuff like that. It just feels and looks good. And it's also exhausting.
Well, it feels like mech combat is like the perfect genre for VR. Like, I mean, at some level, it just feels like a natural fit to me. And I'm looking at some of the screenshots now because you have me curious. Would you say it's fair to call this almost like a cell shaded kind of look?
Yeah, like kind of a cell shaded like kind of yeah like kind of like cartoon look that looks kind of reminiscent to me of like the animation for like Boondocks when they had that on Adult Swim.
Oh,
Like maybe like
interesting.
that. I don't know what
Yeah,
like what to compare this to. I'm not sure.
it looks really
Um
neat though.
but yeah, it's great. It has wonderful Underdogs just has wonderful style. It has great feeling. It's a lot of fun. I yeah, that's one of and actually, oh, this came out this year. I thought this came out late last year, but this came out January 25th, 2024. So very early. But it came
Wow.
out this year. So there you go.
Perfect. Well, there you go. No, that one's interesting to me. I'm afraid of VR. I don't know if we've established that here on the podcast before, but I get tummy aches. But I love knowing more about this wonderful technology.
Mhm. I love VR. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going anywhere, but I love it.
Someday, someday.
Anyway, what's your last one you got there, Jess?
My final pick. This is probably not a surprise to anyone who's familiar with my Twitch channel, but my number
Galaga.
one pick. What's that?
Galaga.
It's Galaga. Galaga wins again, folks. The space shooter Galaga. Here's the thing, Ben. I don't know if you've ever gotten a double ship in Galaga, but there may be no better
You're
feeling
the
in the
person
history of
that
video
taught me.
games.
I didn't actually know you could do that, but I was not much a Galaga player.
You're
I'm
not.
not
You're kidding.
didn't know that. Didn't know that you could
That's
save the other
that's
stuff.
like the whole point of Galaga.
I know.
That's what
As I
makes
said,
it
I wasn't really a Galaga boy. I would
yeah.
play Frogger, I would play Pac-Man,
Mhm. Yes.
but Galaga, I was always
Yeah.
like, I don't know, too spicy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, also you weren't alive when it came out, whereas unbelievably I was. Like
What
I
was
was
that,
there
like
at the
5 million
arcade.
years ago?
Yeah. I was at the arcade on release day. It was just like a sack of quarters. It's like I've heard the hot new Namco game is coming out today, and I'm ready to play some Galaga.
All
Little
right.
4-year-old Jess was there, ready to go. No,
What's number one?
my game of the year. This is my game of the year. I've been doing this as a countdown. You didn't know this the whole time. I've been counting down. It's Kid Name Ice Boy.
Oh, wow.
I am giving
By
my
Grayson,
coveted.
no last name.
Yes, nobody knows who this person is. This mystery developer Grayson drops out of nowhere and gives us the long-awaited prequel to Codename Iceman. That's right, it's Kid Name
Ice
Ice
Boy,
Boy
which you can find on Itch. If
on
you search
itch.
on Itch, Kid Name Ice Boy, it is a free game that you can get on Itch.
And Ben, we streamed this together,
We did.
and you, I think, would agree when I say this is a fantastic game, right?
It's so describe it. It's very
Okay.
good. But what is it? Why Kid Name Ice Boy? None of those words make any sense to me.
Okay, we all know Codename Iceman. We all know and love what is widely considered one of the worst adventure games Sierra ever released. It is a techno thriller set in the near future where you are a naval officer who somehow is tasked with piloting an experimental sub and blowing up an oil rig and stopping a war against the Soviet Union and protecting the world's oil supply and maybe liberating Tunisia. There's a lot going on here, but what it's known for is just being a cruel game. It has
Awful.
a mostly broken submarine simulator that takes up like a third of the game. That is
More than a third.
yeah, well, if you played it straight through, it'd probably only be a third, but because you have to reload and retry and keep at it, it ends up being the bulk of the game.
Right.
It's driven at various times throughout the game with just cruel RNGs. Like everything is a just toss up. Even if you have a walkthrough and they're doing everything exactly as described in the walkthrough, there's also a good chance that the game will still just say, yeah, turns out that didn't happen. That still your missiles just don't hit, or randomly your submarine got sunk. It's awful. Codename Iceman is a game that I mean it is mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically exhausting to play through. A Jim
The
Walls classic.
the amount of finicky controls and bad RNG just like completely like because I remember before I played it, I knew that it had a reputation for being one of the worst, if not the worst, like Sierra adventure games. But I was like, well, it's how bad can a bad adventure game be? Because it's like, well, it's an adventure game. I'll just follow the walkthrough. If it's just
Yeah,
very esoteric and like puzzles, that doesn't matter if I just have the walkthrough in front of me. But I was not prepared for it to be like a constant battle where the game is constantly killing you for either like RNG reasons or like impossible to understand controls reasons.
yeah, when we've played through this, it's taken like 4 and 5 different walkthroughs even to get through it. And even then, you're still just a victim to the RNG. So obviously, this is a game that demands a prequel. And that prequel is Kid Named Ice Boy, where we join a very young JW, the protagonist Johnny Westland of Codename Iceman, when he has been a mere lad attending the Navy's brand new submarine camp. So he is a young child, a patriotic young child, who finds himself aboard a submarine as part of a camp experience and stumbles upon a nefarious plot that's up to him to save the day and to, most importantly, protect the United States from all threats, external and internal.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's very funny.
it leans into the ultra patriotism of the Cold War era. It's set during the Nixon administration. It has a lot of fun with maybe America's greatest president, Richard Nixon. It really takes advantage of this era that it's set in, and ends up being just something that I love. And I love that people know I love this if they've played StairQuest. It is ultimately a love letter to something that doesn't deserve a love letter to be written to it, which I find to be a fascinating concept. When you're nostalgic for something that is completely undeserving of your nostalgia, I think that's a fascinating starting point. I mean, we talked earlier about It Takes Two to Tangle, the King's Quest fan game. This comes from a clear place of love. This comes from an effort to like add to what was there in a series that the creator and millions of fans absolutely adored.
Yeah.
Codename Iceman is the prequel nobody asked for, but that almost makes it better at some level. It is the prequel you could have never expected, and as a result, it's just like this wild series of surprises when you make it to the end.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff. I mean, I think I had more fun playing this game than I did maybe any other adventure game I touched this year, and
Wow.
that's saying a lot. I mean, and I'm not just trying to pump up this mysterious Grayson character who made this. This is me just literally saying it's like I don't know if I've smiled as much, laughed as hard, had as much fun as when I played Kid Named Ice Boy this year. So if you only play one fan game this year, make it Kid Named Ice Boy.
And that's found on itch. Kid name Ice Boy. All right. My last one. This has been heavily alluded to. My game of the year is UFO 50. It's UFO 50. It's incredible. It is.
I was a hater. Now I was a
Yeah.
skeptic.
That's my most popular video on YouTube. UFO 50 with a skeptic.
I became a believer by the end of this. This is a fantastic piece of work. Ben, tell us
Yeah.
all about UFO 50.
So if you're unfamiliar, UFO 50 is a game that is a compilation of 50 games that are largely full games and but they're not mini games. They're not like little WarioWares. They're full-fledged games. And uh what what they are is they're games for a fictional console or like short series of consoles called the LX and the first game like they it comes to you in chronological order. The first game came out in 1982 and the last game came out in 1989 and what's really wonderful about this game or this collection of games is that not only is there a lot of fun to be had playing them, and the games are kind of an assortment of types of games that you'd probably find on an NES or like a Sega Master System or something from that era, like kind of Metroidvania type large puzzle platformers or like action shmups, some strategy stuff. There's an adventure game. But what's really great is that a very strong uh, uh, amount of thought was put towards making it feel like all 50 of these are part of a cohesive whole. Is that like you see ideas show up in earlier games, start to be toyed with and refined as other games, like as they make more later on. You see there's a lot of like reusage of sprites in it too. Of it's like, oh, this sprite first shows up in this game and then it like shows up 3 games later as this other thing. It I think like what really makes it speak to me is like something that's really special is that there are a lot of I even already have on Steam like a collection of like NES type games that like indies. Like I have something like, I think it's called like Retro Game Jam or something like that. That's good. It
Ah,
was a lot of fun. But like the 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 fact that there is a level of cohesion across this, and UFO 50, if you're familiar with it, it also has like kind of this Easter egg hunt aspect to it where you can unlock like kind of this backstory thing that like fills in this whole back narrative. But even if you don't, and I wasn't really interested in the Easter egg hunt thing, is that you could still piece together the narrative and evolution of a game studio and of a console just by playing the games and just kind of seeing what their little preoccupations are. And for that, that's why it's so special to me, is that it like
it's
not
more than
only,
just a collection of games.
yes, correct.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating to me too. And I think that, I came in and played it with you a bit, and we sort of jumped around to games that felt like fun and were good multiplayer options and things like that. And there are a lot of those. But I feel like that's the part I missed out on, was getting this sense of how it evolved over time. And that's fascinating to me. I think that, I mean, the logistics of putting together a collection of 50 games alone is
Well, that
hard to
wasn't,
imagine.
there
Having a
was,
sense of
yeah.
cohesion between them. But then on top of it, the notion of like telling a story through about a studio through games
Hmm.
is kind of some next level stuff. And the fact that they pulled that off is absolutely fascinating.
So yeah, really, I couldn't recommend it enough. I think it's just really wonderful. And so that was my game of the year. Fuck you, Grayson. I would never give you anything like that. Anyway, so that is our games of some year. Oh, and we actually both had mostly games from this year, but not
I
entirely.
know. Honestly, we could just, I think, each cut like one, and we would have actually had a game of the year countdown. But
Um,
where's the fun in that?
no.
Where, I ask you, Ben, is the fun in that?
But is there anything you're looking forward to? Now, of course, I am going to note, taking a look at a little timer here, that the original intention of doing this episode was it would be like something short and fun, and now this is as long as our average episode.
And
Uh,
less fun.
yeah, not fun at all. But
No,
Jess, is there anything you're looking forward to in the far off year 2025? I'm looking
well, I think
forward to
we
everything. The outlook is good. All right.
everything looks great for 2025. I can only see things on the way up. You know, I'm really excited for Rosewater.
Yep.
Rosewater, the Western Adventure, by our good friend Grundislav Francisco Gonzalez, uh, looks out of this world to me. I'm really excited for this one. I love a good Western adventure game, and I know this one is a labor of love that has been underway for a while. And I think 2025 is, I don't know if that's officially locked in, but it feels like
I think
that's a
you put.
strong,
Let me take a look. I'm excited to see that too, because I've
yeah.
been watching that development, and it just looks really cool. And similar, like we were talking about this with Crimson Diamond. I believe Francisco occasionally will stream. It says Q1 2025, so soon.
Oh, say this soon, soonish.
But
Yeah,
I think he does dev streams on Twitch as
he
well.
does. Yeah, I think Wednesday afternoons pretty often. But that's
Okay.
what I'm really excited for. I can't wait to see this one come out and take it for a spin. How about you, Ben? Are there any
Now I'm
big
looking at
games?
screenshots. This looks cool.
It looks fantastic, right? I mean, it looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. It has like a very has a it like I'm very intrigued. It seems lately that like a lot of the indie developers of adventure games are kind of moving past kind of a fixed in place 1992
Yes.
spot, and like some are still there and they still look good, like obviously
Hmm.
Locomotive, which we talked about, like that looks great. um but like, looking at Rosewater, and I believe Lamplight, yeah, like Lamplight City was sort of in this style too, his previous game. Like we're seeing games that aren't necessarily in the that perpetual 1992 style 93. Anyway, I'm looking forward to Civilization 7.
Oh, I've heard of this series.
This is, it's just okay. I'm not following close attention to this is February of next year.
Wow.
I'm not like I know like it looks like they're mixing up something like you change nations midway through the game or something. I don't know. I don't usually track it. The thing is that I I generally just like Civ. I know like some people get very super finicky about Civilization, but my general feeling of Civilization is like that people hate the current version until the next one comes out.
That's
And
right.
then
Civ 6 is getting ready to enter into a golden era
yeah,
as Civ
like
7 comes
like
out.
once 7 comes out, we're going to get like this crop of people who are all like, man, it was they really had it with Civ 6. Like I can't believe they've ruined everything. The Civ 7 garbage pile of shit because like I saw this happen in real time for Civ 5. Any of you shaking your head at home, shaking your head, you're listening and you're like, "Oh, Ben, that smug son of a bitch. He's saying this about Civ, but he's wrong." No, I remember everyone was very mean, very nasty to Civ 5. They all hated Civ 5. They didn't like the one unit per tile. They didn't like any of the changes Civ 5 brought. Then Civ 6 comes out, and Jess, would you believe everyone loves Civ 5? So listen, I'm looking, I'm watching for
Ben's
all
got
of
his eyes
you.
on you.
I know you're all going to do it, and you're shaking your head. No, I hate Civ 6 so much. I hate
You're going to
regions.
love it.
I hate it. And the second like what day, hold on, I had it up in front of me, the February 11th 2025, you're going to type into the Steam review negative, not as good as Civ 6. You're gonna write
Civ
it.
6. I love Civ 6. I
I
will
love
come
Civ
out and
6
say,
too. Yeah,
I mean, I'm the opposite. I always like just whatever the newest one is.
yeah,
That's the one I
me
like
too,
because
me too,
it's the
exactly.
prettiest, and I just care about being pretty. Now, I will say, I love the animations of the leaders in Civ 6. Like of all the things to like focus in on, I think that the leaders, especially Cleopatra, who I think her
Mhm.
animations of like when her civilization is on the brink of collapse or when she's
Oh
angry,
yeah, she
they
gets
just
so mad.
so expressive and all the characters are express. It's a fun game. I've logged my fair share of hours with that. Ben, do you have a civilization that's your civilization?
It's always whatever the most I love the first. I think like my first Civ was 3,
Uh huh.
uh, which I enjoyed at the time, but
Yeah.
even like it's not a very good Civ. That's like
Yeah.
probably the weakest Civ.
Mhm. I
The
guess I was asking though, like, is there like a civilization, a people
oh oh oh
that you
oh, who do I
gravitate
usually
toward?
play as?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You know, I'll hit rant. I think Australia, John Curtin, he has a pretty.
Okay.
I gotta like I'm gonna have to take a look because it's actually been a little bit since I've played Civ 7. I did doesn't Korea have a science
Oh, I think they
bonus,
might.
or
I
is
think
that
so.
Civ 5? Am I mixing up my Civ?
I can't
Or
remember. It's been
it
so
could in
long.
both, but like I think I would play as it's been a minute. I would have to. There was also I was having a problem with Civ 6 on my computer for a brief moment, but I think that's all fixed. Um but yeah. I'll
2025 will be a great year, though. You'll have a chance to build civilizations while civilization collapses around you.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well, that's it's about much like Owl's Guard, incredible fantasy. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to next year?
I mean, there's lots of stuff, especially, the Game Awards just aired recently as we recorded this. I was pretty excited to see the announcement of Outer Worlds 2. Maybe that was something that already been talked about for a while, but for me, it was sort of a pleasant
Is
surprise
it
that it
next
was even
year?
in development. I believe it's next year. I believe they said that's a 2025er.
Wow.
So that'll be fun. I liked the first Outer Worlds. I didn't quite finish it. I got pretty far and got distracted by something, but it was pretty charming. I'd love to see a second pass at, because I think that there's probably a lot of constructive feedback on the
Yeah,
things that people didn't
2025.
love about it, that the Obsidian could probably really pull off a good sequel.
Yeah, it was fine. That was
Yeah,
my it was my I didn't get too far either. I played it and I was like, "You know what? This is perfectly okay."
yeah.
Like
Which is why I think the sequel has a potential to really take it a little further than that and go past, perfectly okay.
my like wasn't the kind of the appeal of it like it's like oh, we might get a New Vegas type game. Was that like what we
That
all were
was the
waiting
hope, I
for and
think.
then it's just kind of what it was.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Uh
it's hard to get a New Vegas game because New Vegas is fantastic. New Vegas was nearly on my list. I replayed it this year, and it was almost on the list tonight. So yeah, New Vegas, you just don't get a New Vegas.
I'm actually on the Obsidian front. I'm actually looking forward to Unavowed because I like the Pillars of Eternity game. Unavowed is Obsidian's other big release next year, and it is a I don't know. They push back because people are like, oh, it's going to be like Skyrim, and they're like, no, 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 no. So I think it's like maybe a medium. Like there's open world and closed world. Maybe it's like a medium world. I don't know. I'm not
Maybe like a
following
Dragon Age Inquisition. I
previews
think
or
that's how it
anything.
was.
I this isn't it's just the idea of the like I like the Pillars of Eternity games, which were their kind of throwback isometric like computer RPGs like in the style of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I enjoyed those. Unavowed is a 3D game that has kind of a Bethesda aesthetic that is set in that world. And I'm like, all right, great. Well, I liked those games, so it'll be nice to go back there. So it's fantasy, but they also have guns, Jess. That's pretty cool.
Oh, fantasy guns.
Well,
I like that.
they're rifles. They're like old because it's
Oh,
like
blunderbusses.
yeah, like it's kind of in like the fantasy like old timey clock. I think it's 100 years ahead of that, so it's still in it's in late fantasy times. I think
Gotcha.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, more close to the present day.
Yeah, which makes it all the more terrifying. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. Listen. I don't check what the weather is tomorrow. I don't check what the previews are for next year. I don't know what's coming out other than Civ 7 because I buy them at release and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is terrible," and I'm like, "Wow, this is the greatest game I've ever played my entire life."
Well, you know what I'm looking forward to next year, Ben?
What?
Another year of podcasting with you. Quest
Yeah,
will be back for 2025. And boy, are things
yeah.
going to heat up.
Oh yeah. We've got all sorts of things in store.
All kinds of exciting episodes planned.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
big
we
plans.
we've locked down a 6 episode long interview series with Ken Williams. That
Mhm.
was tough.
Got
It,
KW.
we got KW. It was hard to do, but yeah, I mean, we've got that. And then once we're done with that, we'll probably just end the podcast because I think we will have covered everything there is to talk about.
Yeah. So we've got 6 more podcasts. All right. Well, uh, thank, thank you everybody for joining us for Request Quest Side Quest. Um, you can send us an email at questquestpodcast@gmail.com. You can watch both of us on Twitch. I'm PS_Garrick.
And I'm Decaf Jedi.
And please rate and review us It helps people find this show. Is there anything else I missed?
Thanks to all our sponsors. In case we get a sponsor before
Yeah.
this episode gets
Oh
uploaded,
yeah, yeah. In case this before this gets uploaded, we'd like to thank all of our sponsors, including and
Citibank,
also. Oh,
dog
I was
food.
leaving. Yeah, I was leaving open
No, that's
spots.
true. Well, I was going ahead. I was giving. I'm aspirationally imagining that Citibank, and then just the abstract concept of dog
Yeah, I
food
was like just
will.
dog food.
Yeah, just like the dog food council for feeding dogs. Yeah, I hope that they'll get in here and make our dreams come to life.
Yeah, I'm hoping for them too. But until then, join us next week when we discover that the scoring in all of the old Sierra Adventure games was incorrect, and we painstakingly go over several scoring systems.